All right, how we doing? Welcome to the Fight SZN Podcast. What's cracking?
What's up?
What up?
We got our research guy here, Dante Greco, Jesse Rowe right here, and Christian, our sound engineer. What's going on?
What's up, Cap? How are you?
Good. So what's the date today? Today's Monday, January.
It is January 9th.
9th. So on the 14th, we got KSI versus Dillon Danis. But Danis pulled out.
Danis did pull out. It was the shock heard round the world, Andrew.
Right. No, I actually thought I was actually shocked. I thought Danis was going to fight.
You thought he was going to show up?
Yeah, I don't like to hate on Danis. I don't like to do the popular thing. The popular thing is to hate on Dillon Danis. I don't understand why.
I didn't look at like the odds makers or anything, but if there was a bet of whether or not he was going to actually show up to that fight, I would have taken the odds against it. Just me personally.
Right. I mean, I don't know what people expect. He's had a couple knee injuries, legitimate like surgery on his knee. He had to like reconstruct his knee.
Yeah. And he was good. He was good.
So that takes a couple years. That takes at least a year.
Yeah.
Year and a half, 2 years to come back from. I think he had all intentions to box KSI, and he probably realized last minute, hey, there's a chance I do lose because I'm not in shape. I don't have a boxing coach. I don't have a boxing trainer. I might as well pull out. And rather than sacrifice my O on his record. Because right now he's undefeated in MMA and boxing. Because in boxing he's 0-0.
You think he was taking it less seriously because he was going to be fighting a YouTuber? Like, even though KSI has had some fights, he's still known as a YouTuber.
100%. I think he was taking it less seriously. Then he realized, he's seen KSI posting these shredded pics. KSI was looking all ripped, six-pack. He was looking jacked. And Danis is probably shit. This is going to be a real fight.
Yeah, and he said that too, that he like wasn't taking KSI all that seriously. He said it in an interview.
Yeah.
And
we got our engineer here, Christian, creeping. What's going on, Christian? We good?
But here's the thing about that. You don't have a boxing coach 2 weeks before your fight is scheduled. You don't have a boxing coach. Like, I don't really see that as a good excuse, personally. Like, you didn't have it planned. Like,
well, in an interview, he did say he was going to make a large amount of money. I think he had everyone thinks he was planning on backing out. I think he had every intention to actually box. Then he realized, shit, I'm a little out of shape. I'm not ready for this. There's a chance I could lose. And I think he genuinely backed out like last minute. I don't think it was planned.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just agree to disagree on that. But I do think KSI legitimately was prepared for this to happen because they had FaZe Temper planned and ready to go right away. They were like, they had that backup plan ready to go. So
who's a much weaker opponent?
Yeah.
I think you know what this might have actually been. I'm not the guy to say all this stuff is staged and fake, but FaZe Temper, who the fuck is FaZe Temper?
Yeah, I've never heard of him before, to be honest.
I guess he's a YouTuber. You know, what is FaZe Temper? Is a rapper? Or is
I'm trying to figure out who he is right now.
So
and Dante is the best researcher in the game, and if he can't figure it out, that's a problem.
That's right, Jesse. FaZe is like the FaZe clan, right? The gaming thing.
So this is FaZe Temper.
Probably a
I'm
gamer.
assuming he has a temper, but we'll see. If you're going to call yourself Temper, you better bring it in the boxing ring. And I think KSI is going to win.
Yeah.
KSI's had like 3 professional boxing fights now, 2 against Logan Paul, maybe 2 against some other guys.
And I hope he doesn't have a temper because normally cooler heads prevail.
I like the temper, like going there.
Nobody. Okay, all right. I'm not the comedy guy.
Yeah, but that's in London this Saturday, January 14th.
Same night as UFC Fight Night, which is Gastelum versus Imamov, which has officially been called off. So Sean Strickland's filling in for Gastelum because apparently
that's as of like an hour ago.
Yeah, literally just broke. So he has like a mouth injury. I haven't read up on it enough, but he has a mouth injury that forced him to pull out. So
right. So Strickland steps in on 6 days' notice,
and he just fought like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't get as shocked. Like people like to praise these. What do they call them? Short notice fights. Not me. Like you have 6 days. To me, that's plenty of notice. Yeah. You get in a fight in 6 days. Boom, get ready. The only issue is the weight cut. So that's why they made it. It's actually at 205 pounds. It was supposed to be at middleweight. They made it light heavyweight. So they're fighting at 205. So that's even easier for Strickland.
Right.
Make weight no problem. And the only one it sucks for is Imanov. Because he has been prepping this whole fight camp to fight Gastelum. Now it's 6 days' notice. I always think short notice favors the guy stepping in on short notice, but
right,
it's actually Yeah, it's not good for Imanov because
Well, he's had a full camp preparing for Gastelum, and
now the next 6 days you're just thinking Sean Strickland. Two completely different fighters as far as like Gastelum's a wrestler, and he's short. Strickland's big, tall, 6'1", possibly 6'2" striker.
Yeah, and he has a knack of just turning fights into sparring matches. So basically, Imamov's probably in for a longer fight than he anticipated. Now this is going to be Strickland likes to go the distance.
Yeah, I think Strickland wins this. Just because he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Is it 2-fight or 3-fight? I think
it's 2. He got knocked out by Pereira and then lost to Cannonier.
Yeah, so he's on a 2-fight losing streak. I think he's going to get the dub on this one.
Yeah, I like Strickland too. Actually, I think he's.
Imanov is no slouch, so he's pretty good too. He's on a 2-fight win streak.
But it's kind of cool. I don't know. I like when stuff like this happens. It kind of makes the fight night a little more interesting. I mean,
Imanov beat the guy you interviewed, Edmund Shabazian.
Oh, Shabazian. Yeah, he did. Okay, got it.
Don't be correcting me on people's names, brother.
Hey guys, I don't want to correct you on people's names, but I keep seeing it spelled Imavov, and you guys are saying Imanov.
Imavov.
It is Imavov. That was dumb on our part. Thank you. He's not the best researcher in the game for nothing, folks.
Thank you, Dante.
Sorry to correct you on people's names, bro.
Yeah.
So what's FaZe Temper? Is he a gamer?
FaZe Temper is Brazilian. I know that.
He's
Brazilian. But there's not a lot of. He's a YouTuber. There's not a lot of information on him.
Did you see anything about? Speaking of Brazilians, did you see anything about Jose Aldo? He's
making his boxing debut, right? Well, I did see that he's actually hosting the president of Brazil in his home,
Bolsanaro.
Bolsanaro, while all the Brazilians are storming the Brazilian Senate. He's
tell me about it. I didn't read. I saw the headline. I didn't read it. What do you know?
So
about
basically,
that?
it's like the January 6th of Brazil going on.
Well, how's Aldo involved?
So
he's staying at his house.
He's staying at his house in Miami.
In Orlando.
Orlando. Oh wow.
And they took a picture. Like I'm trying to find it. One of them has the other in a headlock.
That's hilarious.
But
so this is kind of like Trump staying at Colby Cup.
Exactly like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's this Brazilian president's name?
Jair Bolsanaro. Bolsanaro was also. They got a photo of him eating KFC, just like Trump.
Oh, I didn't see that. Is that the move?
That's the move.
To relate to the people. Right. Yeah, so, but also, he also has his boxing debut, I think they just announced, like in February.
But no one cares right now. What everyone's talking about is him hosting the president of Brazil while they're trying to overthrow the government in Brazil.
Yeah, it's basically their January 6th. It's like basically the exact same thing.
We actually have a writer for Inside Fighting who lives in Brazil.
Yeah, Timmy Shoes.
Yeah, and he was giving us the lowdown, saying that he's staying away from that area, but he's pretty close by, actually.
Where is it exactly? Where is the Senate in Brazil? It's the Senate, right?
Yeah, it's whatever the state capital is. I can look that up. Here's Bolsonaro. He's got Aldo in a headlock. Okay. See that?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But
yeah, so all those boxing February 10th. That's a terrible day to fight because that is Super Bowl the night before Super Bowl. Well, people might watch it, but everyone's focused on the Super Bowl that weekend.
Yeah.
I want Aldo to fight my guy, Ernie Reyes Jr. That'd be a good boxing match.
That would be good.
Yeah, so maybe if Aldo gets past his opponent February 10th, because I know Ernie might be, I don't want to speak for him, but he might be considering a comeback.
Is he really?
Possibly. I don't want to speak
awesome.
Those are just the vibes I'm getting.
Okay.
Nothing official, but Ernie Reyes versus Aldo at 135, maybe even 140 would be a fantastic fight.
For those who don't know, Ernie Reyes is a real-life Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. He was in the movies, did all his own stunts.
Tons of movies. What are some other movies Ernie Reyes Jr. has been in?
God, yeah.
Let me pull up his IMDb.
Surf Ninjas.
Surf Ninjas.
Most popular probably for Surf Ninjas.
The Last
That's right.
Dragon.
We talked about this last time.
Sidekicks. Art of Submission. The Rundown with Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, that's right.
The Last Dragon. Red Sonja, 1985.
Yeah, he's got a good little IMDb page. Did you watch the Gervonta and Hector Luis Garcia fight?
No, I did. I saw some highlights. I was actually at a wedding. Did you watch it?
I did. I was surprised. It was actually a pretty good fight for like the first 6 rounds.
Oh, nice.
Pretty good. I
saw some highlights. And man, Tank just throws. It's like every swing is a knockout punch.
I love his style.
Like he throws hard. He's like a little Tyson, right?
Yeah. He has a really cool style, but so he hit Garcia so hard, and with the left hook that apparently he couldn't see in between rounds. He just said he just threw in the towel, couldn't see anymore. But yeah, I loved it. And then what it was all about, I think, was that Ryan Garcia tweeted afterwards and basically said it's over for you, Tank. So we are.
I'm pulling that up right now. By the way, I'm listening.
We're on the verge of the Ryan Garcia versus Tank fight.
Right. Ryan says goodbye, Tank. It's over for you. No more talking. Let's get it on April 15th. So that's the date that Ryan Garcia and Tank. There's nothing on the dotted line. There's nothing official. They would both like to fight in Las Vegas April 15th.
Yeah,
that'd be a fantastic fight. I'll be there. They should do T-Mobile, whatever they do, either MGM Grand Arena, Garden Arena, or T-Mobile. They'll sell it out. Yeah, every rap star would be there. Every actor, every musician.
Do you think it would do
every athlete?
Yeah, I think it would get bigger stars. But do you think it would do more pay-per-views than Fury versus Usyk?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good question.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think Ryan Tank probably does 1 million pay-per-view buys. Yeah, because Ryan, like, I have my cousins. Not cousins, like nephews. They're like 21 years old, and all they ever ask me about is like, when's Ryan fighting Tank? When's Ryan fighting Tank? I say soon. So Ryan just gets so many young people excited for his fights.
Yeah.
And typically those young people don't buy pay-per-views. They like to do the illegal streams.
Right.
But I think Ryan has the ability with Oscar De La Hoya behind him promoting it.
I think that's a good point. I think that the Tank versus Ryan fight is the fight that's gonna like help bring in like a new generation of fans in boxing. Where I think for like boxing purists, the Usyk versus Fury fight is like more of like the fight that like traditional boxing fans want to see. Where the fight that's better for culture, better for growing the sport, it's Tank versus Garcia.
Right, for growing the sport, Tank versus Garcia. But I think boxing purists, they still want to see Tank versus Garcia. You have 250 fighters. Yeah. Tank's now 28-0, 26 knockouts. Tank's an incredible fighter.
And Hector Luis Garcia was no slouch. He was 13-0, I believe.
16-0.
Okay, yeah. So,
but Tank 28-0, 26 knockouts now. But yeah, the biggest fights boxing purists want to see are Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, Usyk, Tyson Fury, Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis. What's another one people want to see out there?
We talked about it a little bit. It's going to be a good year for boxing. I think it's going to be a good year for boxing.
Well, if the promoters can get these fights.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see that it was Meek Mill who was at the center of the fight in the crowd at the?
Yeah. So what exactly happened?
He got into a scuffle with boxer Gary Russell Jr. and apparently Meek was supporting Tank, and then he got into like a shouting match with Gary Russell Jr.
Yeah, and keep in mind Gary Russell Jr. fights at like 130. He's a small guy, but he fights anywhere from 125 to 135.
Yeah,
would he piece up Meek Mill? 100%.
Yeah,
I'm not saying because he's a small guy he won't absolutely just destroy Meek Mill. He's a professional boxer.
Right.
What's Gary Russell's record? Undefeated, if I'm not mistaken, or 1 loss.
Let me look that up.
So I'm sorry, but do we know what started it? Like what happened?
Meek was cheering for Gervonta, and then, Gary wasn't, and they got into a scuffle. It was broken up by Wallow for $1 million worth of game.
Wow. Wow. I mean, Gervonta is a divisive figure in boxing. I mean, but man, that guy can pull in a crowd. Also, did you see the truck that he pulled up on?
Yeah,
when he rolled it, that was crazy.
Yeah, I know he's had that truck for a while.
Yeah, but
an actual tank.
It is an actual tank. I mean,
tank drives a tank.
I would take that over the Cybertruck, Elon Cybertruck, any day. That
do you know if he was driving it or was he?
No, he was in the backseat. He was in the backseat. Yeah,
it'd be doper if he was driving it. It's cool either way.
By the way, Gary Russell Jr.'s record 31-2 with 18 knockout wins.
31-2. Right, Meek Mill has a chance then. My bad, Meek Mill.
Could be 31-3.
Yeah, 31-3. We should set that up. Gary Russell Jr. What's his height? 5'5". Meek Mill's over 6 foot.
Gary Russell Jr. 5'5", 127 pounds.
But everyone wants to be in the scene, acting like they were breaking it up. I heard it was Steven Jackson.
I was going to say that. Yeah,
getting into it. And Wallow was breaking it up. So I'm hearing Meek Mill, Gary Russell Jr., Steven Jackson was supposedly getting into it with someone.
Steven Jackson walked out with Gervonta, like he was one of his. He was in his corner.
Well, Steven Jackson's covering boxing now, I believe, for Showtime.
Okay,
so he's a big boxing fan.
Yeah.
Steven Jackson's cool, but if we're talking NBA players boxing, I got Ron Artest all day. Let's go.
Right.
Absolutely.
Meta world peace. Never forget that elbow he threw against James Harden. God.
Yeah. Have you seen Jordan Clarkson? How he always squares up like he's gonna fight.
I want to speak on that. Jordan Clarkson, stop squaring up if you're not going to swing.
Yeah,
It looks
100%.
embarrassing. What are you doing? You're squaring up. You got the whatever.
Yeah.
If you're going to keep squaring up, you're going to have to swing one of these days. What are you doing?
He looks like one of those guys that acts like he's gonna square. He's waiting for somebody to pull him back every single time he does it.
And he was backing up when he was squaring up.
Yeah.
I think the big center was coming after him. Was it? They were playing the Grizzlies, right? I think it was Jaron Jackson.
Oh, Steven Adams or Jaron Jackson?
I think it was Jaron Jackson.
Okay.
Since we're on the topic of basketball, just a quick Lakers suck for all Laker fans out there who are watching this.
Well, hey,
Lakers suck.
while we're
Let's
on
go.
the topic of basketball, the Clippers have lost their 6th game in a row.
Oh, you serious?
Yeah,
well,
6 games in a row.
back to fighting. Anyway, so everyone was in the Tank brings out stars. Ryan Garcia brings out stars. Imagine the amount of stars that will go to the fight when they both fight, because everyone shows up for Tank. Every celebrity shows up for Tank. Ryan, tons of celebrities. Ryan once told me that it was either Brady or Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, was DMing him. I think both. But yeah, I mean everyone talks to Ryan Garcia. So
I know Jake Paul is in Ryan Garcia's corner. He tweeted about it, said that Ryan is going to knock out Tank if they fight.
Yeah. Speaking of Jake Paul, right? He had a big week.
He did have a big week. I mean,
huge week. Jake Paul signs with the Professional Fight League, PFL, and comes out as a part owner, minority owner.
Yeah.
So he joins Wiz Khalifa, A-Rod. I think Alex Rodriguez is part of PFL, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty tight.
It is. I mean, so he's starting up. He's becoming part owner, but he's also starting up his very own, basically like a division, the Super Fight division, which is essentially designed for Jake Paul, I guess. But it's gonna be for pay-per-view. It's their pay-per-view division, kind of, for super fights.
And immediately he signs, and the first thing he does is calls out Nate Diaz.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the biggest name that he can call out right now.
Yeah. He offered a 2-fight boxing first, MMA 6 months later.
Right. So obviously we know how we feel about it in MMA, but is that smart for Jake to try and go into that right away?
Yeah, I mean it's not smart because him and his brother do come from a wrestling background, and they wrestled in Ohio. In high school, they were pretty good wrestlers. And then Jake Paul's already been boxing.
Yeah.
So the only thing he's missing is submissions.
Right.
He's been boxing. He got his hands. His high school wrestling background should help him, adjust to, take down defense, maybe scoring a double leg, or, he has some wrestling.
Is that a fight that Nate will accept? Let's say it happens. Is that a fight that Nate would accept right away, or do you think he would need like a tune-up fight in the boxing ring before he took on Jake Paul? Obviously, we know their history as fighters, but no.
You hear that guy? He's saying that Nate Diaz needs a tune-up before he fights Jake Paul.
By the way, his name's Jesse Rowe.
Jesse Rowe
be clear.
suggesting Nate Diaz needs a tune-up.
Do you think he wants to jump into it and do that right away, or would you want to get some practice in boxing?
Absolutely. No, he's been boxing his whole career. He's boxed versus Andre Ward. Andre Ward's one of the best boxers of all time, undefeated. Retired now as an ESPN analyst. But no, Nate Diaz is more than ready to step in the ring and box Jake Paul, whether it's in the ring or on the street for free. This guy, Nate Diaz, fights. He boxes. He doesn't. No tune-up for him. And actually, I don't believe in tune-ups. You're ready or you're ready.
Well, people perceived that Hector Luis Garcia fight as a tune-up for Tank before he takes on Ryan Garcia. So
to me, I see that as a tune-up for his bank account. He's just trying to get an extra few $100,000 million in there before the big payday. So he's really tuning up his finances.
So I guess what I'm really asking is, do you think that fight actually happens? Do you think we actually see Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz?
I hope so. I can't speak for those guys, but Jake Paul wants it. I think as soon as Jake Paul was calling out Nate Diaz that day when he signed with PFL.
It was the first thing he did. Yeah.
First thing Nate Diaz does is tweet up a picture of Ryzen.
Right. That was pretty. That was pretty clever, actually.
He's like, not going to PFL.
Yeah.
Ryzen, what's good? And hey, that could be a possibility too. Like I said on the last podcast, Manny Pacquiao, Nate Diaz. No one's talking about that. You heard it here first, right here, Andrew Capucetti. That is I'm predicting. I think it makes sense. Pacquiao's with Ryzen. Nate Diaz tweets out a picture of Ryzen.
Yeah.
Match made in heaven. They meet at 160.
And Resin puts on a good show. I mean, we just saw that they did the cross promotion with Bellator. That was a fun event.
Yeah.
I could see Nate signing like a 1-fight deal with Ryzen, going to fight Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about what Michael Bisping was saying about Jake challenging Nate Diaz? Let me read it to you. He says, it's the same old story, isn't it? Same old story because Nate Diaz fought almost all his fights at 155 and a few at 170, but he's a lightweight generally. Jake Paul weighs over 200 pounds, and I've been through this. It's every single time I talk about it. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's a boxer, and he wants to go first because he'll probably knock Nate Diaz out or beat him in the very least in a boxing fight.
He said that?
Bisping on his YouTube channel.
Is that a tweet?
This was taken.
Video?
I'm on MMAfighting.com. It was taken from Bisping's YouTube channel. He says, that's not me being a Nate Diaz hater. It's just what my analysis tells me, and it's what your analysis would tell you as well. Let's be honest.
Wow. And he said, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. You can say whatever you want to, Jesse, but I like Bisping. He actually follows me on Twitter. Bisping's.
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
nice.
Bisping's tight as fuck. I've always been a big fan of Bisping.
I'm a huge Bisping fan.
Yeah, this is a terrible take, though. This was not as... Read that last sentence. What do you say again?
Okay.
Dante?
He says, that's not me being a Nate Diaz hater.
Speak up there, Dante. Let the people hear you.
He said,
that deep-ass voice.
He said, that's not me being a Nate Diaz hater. It's just what my analysis tells me, and it's what your analysis would tell you as well. Let's be honest. He wants to beat him in that first, so it leaves that little bit in the mind for when they do have the mixed martial arts fight. Wow. Again, that wouldn't get sanctioned normally. He's way too big.
Wow. I mean, I don't think Bisping's seen Nate recently, but that's not a good take because Nate's like 6'1" and walks around at probably like 190, 195. He's just as big as Jake Paul. And there's a small chance he's actually bigger, but he's just as big. I've met Jake Paul many times. I've seen Jake Paul. I've been in the same circle as Jake Paul, same area many times. He's not that big, Jake Paul. I think Bisping's overblowing how big Jake Paul is. In fact, Bisping's bigger than Jake Paul. Bisping looks like 210, 6 foot. Jake Paul's 5'10", 210 max. Nate Diaz is 6'1", 195. They're about the same size. That whole he's way bigger than Nate Diaz thing, bad take. I'm not saying this because I'm a massive Nate Diaz fan. I'm saying it because I truly believe it. Right. Nate Diaz knocks Jake Paul out in under 6 rounds.
Wow. Yeah. I had kind of the same reaction as you when I heard that because
a bad take.
I generally think like most of these UFC fighters, like they are walking around 30 pounds more than their division. Most of them are, and that, you know, that gets the Aljamain Sterling thing. Obviously, he walks around like 170, cuts down to 135. I think Nate, you know,
he hasn't fought at 155 in 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, his fight against Conor was at welterweight, right? Wasn't it? Wasn't it catchweight or like?
It was at 170.
Yeah, so
and his fight versus Pettis 170. Nate hasn't been. People get bigger as they get older, put on more size, and Nate hasn't been 155 in years.
I see. It was weird that he made that take because the take that I've seen a lot of people saying is that Nate meets the criteria for Jake because Jake wants to pick out these like fighters that are perceived. I'm not saying that Nate is. I'm just saying fighters that are perceived to be past their prime, that they're older, and that like Jake can prey upon these like old MMA stars in the later stages when they're no longer.
I think Jake
fighting at high level in the MMA.
Jake Paul typically does try to prey upon older fighters, but I think he knows Nate Diaz is in his prime. He's athletic as fuck. I think Jake is willing to accept his first loss in boxing if it's against a big young star like Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is only 37. Correct me if I'm wrong. He might be
37 or 38.
Yeah, 37, 38. It's still pretty young in the fight game, especially when it comes to boxing. You can box well into your early 40s.
Well,
37 birthdays in April.
So.
Yeah.
You can box well into your early 40s. So as far as boxing, Nate's still a young man. It's like Nate's ready to go.
Well, Anthony Pettis had the exact same take that you have.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and you interviewed him, and he said that he's Team Diaz all day, that he thinks that he's going to handle him in boxing, handle him in MMA. So,
and that's coming from a guy who's fought.
Actually fought Diaz, yeah.
And then Pettis actually said that before he hangs it up and retires, he's going to take a boxing match. So that's interesting. And Pettis I should have asked him who, but Pettis did say he's been boxing pros all his career too. I should have said who you've been.
Well,
I know Nate's boxed Andre Ward.
He threw his hat in the ring to fight Jake Paul if Nate doesn't take that offer from Jake. basically like, hey, I'll fight you in boxing and MMA.
Yeah.
Like,
and as far as size difference, yeah, Jake Paul's actually bigger than Pettis.
Yeah.
But Jake Paul and Nate are around the same size.
Nate's long. He's like kind of lanky.
Yeah, big dude. No, but he actually has some size on him.
Yeah.
Too.
I just hope that either Jake or Nate tunes up Jesse Rowe. You know what I mean? Like as a tune-up fight.
I've been out of pocket this podcast, no doubt about it. Yeah.
What do you think about Kevin Lee? You know Kevin Lee? He's now calling out Jake Paul. He says the Nate Diaz fight ain't happening, so let's fight MMA.
I think that's an old take. Our researcher here is trying to chime in and give us.
Yeah, hey,
listen,
hey, brother, just stick to research. I don't want to hear about Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's cool though, but he hasn't been in the UFC in a couple of years.
This was posted 25 minutes ago by our old employer.
Oh, really? Well, he's probably just trying to get into the news. But speaking really quick, I don't want to go on to a sad subject here, but I do think we should talk about it. You said the last name of Lee, and it triggered my mind. Victoria Lee, the sister of Angela Lee and brother of Christian Lee, sister of Christian Lee. She passed away tragically, 18 years old, up-and-coming MMA star. And obviously her sister and her brother are huge superstars in one championship. And it's just an incredibly tragic story, and I just felt like we'd be remiss not to mention it to offer our condolences to that family.
Yeah. Sorry for your losses, the Lee family. It's extremely tragic and sad, and we at Inside Fighting, we really feel for you guys, and we're deeply saddened to hear that. It's terrible. Thank you for bringing it up. It's absolutely awful. And she was a promising young fighter, and I was actually looking forward to her career because her sister is really good, and Victoria Lee was undefeated, 18 years old, and may she rest in peace, and hopefully the family gets all the love and support they need.
Yeah,
right now.
Just horrible. Nothing else to say about it. Just horrible.
We're joined here by the Robby Clark, the founder of Inside Fighting. What's going on, bro?
What's going on, guys?
You're up in Canada?
I am. It's actually, it's not too bad right here. It's been a pretty warm winter so far. So.
Oh, warm winter.
Mm-hmm.
Global warming.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, no. So what's cracking, Jesse?
Yeah, we've covered a lot of topics, but the reason why we brought you on is did you watch this weekend, by the way, the boxing match between Gervonta and Hector Luis Garcia and Jair and Ennis? Did you watch that?
I did. Actually, I caught the highlights. I watched it after the fact because I was trying to order it, I think, a little bit too late. But, I saw the whole fight afterwards. And, the outcome was expected. I mean, the odds were heavily favorable. I didn't think it was going to be much of a fight going in. So I figured Gervonta was going to win that, and he did. So.
Yeah, I think if you watched How to Fuck Up Your Parlay, we nailed it on all the picks, by the way. Since the start of 2023, we are 7-0 on Inside Fighting. So
I saw that. That's because I've not jumped on yet. So
yeah,
I'll be there to fuck up the parlay. So
we're officially naming Andrew Capucetti going forward. That's Capucetti.
Going forward, only hit me with the Capucetti because you come to me, I got the locks. You want to make money, hit me.
Hey, I heard that Robby was trying to fight Meek Mill in the crowd at the fight. Are those accurate reports?
I saw that. I don't know. Meek's always getting into something, it looks like, but he was getting into it with the boxer. What's his name? The guy's real quick. But
Gary Russell.
Yeah, but he's gotten into it at house parties and stuff like that, too. He's always in it. He did the right thing and walked away, which was good. I mean, he's not trying to fight any boxers. He's more of, he's a rapper / businessman, but it's entertaining. It got a lot of views, and I'm sure it helped Gervonta and those guys in a way as well too, because I'm seeing that all over my feed. So
so Meek Mill walked away, or what? He was the one.
Yeah, Meek Mill did before the fight was over, which it's kind of crappy. Like, you're there for your boy, and then you get into a little argument. And I guess it was the right move because he walked out before it kind of escalated. But yeah, you didn't get to see Gervonta, pull off the win there.
Yeah, Meek Mill, I think he was dressed in all green. He had the green on green, big, tall giant. Yeah, he's a tall guy. But
he is.
I was telling them earlier, he'll still get pieced up by Gary Russell.
Yeah, Gary's pro. Fast.
Yeah, he's only like 125 to 130.
Yeah, but I mean, he's really fast. But he's a small guy. But I think Gervonta and Ryan Garcia is the fight that's got to happen next. Gervonta, I'm a huge Tank fan, and tough fight for Ryan, I think, just because Gervonta, if he catches you once, he can put you out. But he didn't, not to discredit him, but he didn't look super fast at the beginning of that fight.
Who, Tank? Yeah.
Tank, yeah.
Yeah, that's what Gary Russell was saying on his story. I was watching Gary Russell's stories, and he was saying, like, he wasn't impressed with Tank at all.
But then again, I'm sure he wants that fight in Russell. Like, he's known for his speed, right? And he's a little bit smaller than Tank as well, too, so.
You were at Jake Paul's last fight. You were ringside. Now he signs with the PFL. You know Jake Paul. You're close with Nate Diaz. You're close with Jake Paul. Robbie knows everyone. You were actually close with Tory Lanez. Our friend Dante.
Oh, no shit?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Robbie's cool with Tory Lanez. Dante,
well, yeah, I mean, we mutual respect. We're not, like, super close. I feel for him on what he's going through right now. But, yeah. I've definitely, we've connected a bunch of times for sure.
Are you has he been sentenced, Tory Lanez, or not yet?
He hasn't been sentenced yet. He's been convicted. He's facing up to like 22 years in prison. And he might be deported to Canada, Robbie.
Oh, shit.
Well,
hey, listen, if he gets deported to Canada, hopefully he'll do, maximum 22 months. So we got to.
Yeah.
Robbie's going to fill up his commissary. I know that.
Yeah, but.
Robbie's going to put something on his commissary. That's funny. Hey, no, that's fucked up, though, but it's terrible for me.
I feel for him right now.
I didn't even mean to bring up a sad story.
I was going to ask, because one thing we haven't touched on is with the Jake Paul stuff is Tommy Fury we posted on Inside Fighting's Instagram and YouTube, and Tommy Fury basically called out Jake Paul and said that he's willing to offer him for free. Obviously, we probably don't take that seriously as a real offer, but what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that's a fight that's actually ever going to happen? Where do you stand on that?
I mean, to be truthful, and this is no disrespect to the Fury family, like Tyson and them, but I think that is the easiest, best fight for Jake to take. I think Tommy would get beaten pretty easily. I've just not been impressed by anything Tommy's done, and Tommy's still younger too. I almost feel like, it's not that he's not a legitimate boxer, but if you kind of look now, and even with Jake's last fight, Jake really impressed. I thought after round two on Jake's last fight against Anderson, I'm like, he's using too much energy. He's going to tire out, and Anderson's going to get him. And he somehow kept that energy through the whole fight. And then, as you guys saw, knocked Anderson down in the last round, which surprised me because I was like, with all the movement, I was like, he's using too much energy. And, he kept it up the whole time. Tommy, I don't see what he's got. He's not going to, if Anderson and those guys can't knock Jake out, he's not going to knock him out. He's not faster than Anderson, Tommy. And I don't think he's faster than Jake. He's certainly not as powerful. I don't see what he has for him. I think he's legitimately scared, though. And that's the only thing that makes sense. It's kind of like Dillon Danis, pulling out against KSI. Like, why are you pulling out?
You think Tommy's legitimately scared?
Legitimately scared. He's going to make, let's call it minimum 3 to 4 times what he's ever made in any fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think maybe part of it could be the pressure from Tyson. I remember watching a video where Tyson's like, man, you better be training for this fight because Jake's got that overhand right. And he's like going out to a club and whatnot. And he's like, you don't want to embarrass the Tyson name, but like you're embarrassing the Fury, the Fury name by pulling out of these fights. So saying, come to England and fight me. It's like, well, you won't fight him with a training camp with a 7-figure, guaranteed purse. So what do you mean you're going to fight him now? So I'd like to see that fight because it's that fight that's been built up for a long time. And I don't think look, Jake's clever with what he's been doing in MMA, but there's not a lot of fights for Jake right now that are going to get some big draws. Like, honestly,
yeah,
right? Or am I saying anything? Like, I think Tommy's the fight would be a great fight to see, just to hook that one. To finally get that one across the finish line. But we need to get some height around what's going with Jake and have an end goal. If the end goal is a championship, he's got to have a few fights and map that out so people know what we're going for, because we found out he can box, right? And that's what people were waiting to see before. Now that we know he can box, it's like, okay, what's the end goal to get to so that you can captivate the audience into buying those pay-per-views.
I'm glad you brought up the championship thing, because we talked to Anthony Pettis. Cap talked to Anthony Pettis, and he mentioned the whole thing about Jake potentially winning a championship in the PFL. What are your thoughts on them basically creating this division specifically? It seems the optics are that it was specifically for Jake Paul, the merger with him in the PFL. Anthony Pettis kind of made it seem like that was being designed specifically so that Jake had a chance, because the PFL's tournament style would just be too much for him to actually rise the ranks of.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't, like, if I'm Jake, I'm not doing a tournament personally. Like, it's not easy. Like Pettis said, right? Like, I mean, anything can happen. You're fighting 3. Yeah, I wouldn't do that either. But I agree. I think PFL is doing what they feel they need to do to try to compete with the UFC, because that's a real steep ladder, and it might look a little bit cheesy for sure. But you got to take some risk if you're the PFL, if you're going to try to get any market share on the UFC. And they're offering their fighters a lot of money. The truth is that their fighters make more money than they do in the UFC. Now, that doesn't mean the PFL is making any money,
right?
But they are offering their fighters a lot more money. And I don't know, like, Jake was a wrestler in high school. He's an athletic kid. He's still a kid. He's not even 25 yet, right? So, like, if he trains, he can do it. I mean, it's gonna be a world of trouble if he gets with a great wrestler and jiu-jitsu practitioner earlier on, for sure. Right now, because his jiu-jitsu, I mean, I don't know if I don't think he's done any jiu-jitsu training. Maybe he has, but if he has, like, it's not at the level of any of those guys. But I think that it's a risk. It's not really a risk for PFL in a way, because they don't have to. They can do away with the division if they don't want. I think it's just like a risk-reward situation where, hey, it might look a little cheesy, but it's getting a lot of headlines. And Jake, to his credit, is kind of pivoting and keeping attention on him. And now you got MMA fighters calling him out, and then you got some corny ones being like, "Oh, I'll train you," and it's just kind of weird. But you know, it's a clever move, I think.
Hey, I want to go back to what you're saying. So you think Tommy Fury's scared of Jake Paul? I agree with you. You know, he offered to fight him for free, and everyone knows when you make these free, I'm going to fight for free offers, no one's going to do that. Like, the promoters, they lose money.
Reality, yeah, no
you
reality.
Make people make money.
Is paying you millions of dollars to be on a reality TV show. You know what I mean? Like, where else there's no bigger paycheck he can get than this fight with Jake. So where else is he going to make millions of dollars? And if he beats Jake, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
okay.
It's not going to be biased, but Inside Fighting here believes Tommy Fury's scared of Jake Paul.
100%. I can't listen. That's just being realistic about the optics. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Why else wouldn't you fight him?
You know, you also said something that I wanted to circle back on, because earlier in the podcast we were discussing the Dillon Danis pullout from the KSI fight, and I believe that Dillon Danis was always going to pull out, whereas Cap was saying that he thinks that he had genuine intentions of actually fighting that fight. Right. And I just personally think if you don't have a coach going into 2 weeks before the fight, and I don't think that that's an excuse. I think that was like deliberate, where he never fully had an intention. What is your take on it? Do you agree with Cap or do you agree with me on this?
I agree with Cap, where I thought he was actually going to fight. In hindsight, yeah, but I think that was an excuse. But that was so weird, because again, it's like another guy who's going to get paid more than anything. And this is just one, like the straw that broke the camel's back, to use that, you know, really corny expression.
Yeah.
Dillon's so weird because, like, you know, he was a great grappler and all this, and it's like it was corny. And then if he at least fought KSI, it'd be good. And I know he's got these injuries, and he's had some family issues too. I don't want to take away from like that stuff, but if you're gonna put yourself back out there and say, hey, I'm gonna fight, then you gotta fight. Now you're fighting a YouTuber, and to KSI's credit, like, KSI is kind of like, he's been taking it serious, and I don't care if Dillon Danis doesn't have any real stand-up experience. He was, you know, one of the best, or, you know, even just watch his grappling match with Gordon Ryan before he got, you know, jacked out of his mind, and you're going to see like how competitive that was. He's able to compete with the best in the world at any combat sport. It's like when Jake fought Ben Askren, although you would assume that, you know, maybe I don't know, maybe their hands are at the same level, but it's like a similar situation where it's like he's still an athlete. He's still trained with Conor. He's still done these guys. It surprised me he pulled out, and I thought it was just like, man, good luck. Maybe Coker puts him on a card again, but it's like,
right. No, I think Coker puts him on a card again for sure in Bellator.
Yeah. I think you can use him there, but you can't build a card around him. I agree. And KSI now wanting to bring him back. It's just weird to pull out. It's not a good look for him.
Well, I thought the optics were bad that KSI had an immediate replacement for him. I think that was sort of where I thought it was. They were fully prepared for this scenario. So I think it's the optics of it are probably more determinative than the actual reality of it. but that's where I sort of stand on
Okay,
it. But,
KSI said he's buying to fight Jake at the end of the year. He said he's been putting his all into this. He's a smaller guy, and he's he said he's going to fight Woodley. Woodley was in the running, so we'll see how he does. What is that, this weekend? We'll see how he does this weekend, and if he comes out, looks good, and if he fights Woodley and beats Woodley, I mean, you can start building a fight. Listen, I got credit. Look at KSI was kind of like skinny fat, and now he's looking pretty jacked. So I mean, he's obviously taken seriously. He said he donated his last purse or whatever, like all to his team. He wasn't even doing it for any money. So look, I'm not there to discredit guys. And ultimately, it's like we call these guys YouTubers. But Dillon Danis was scared. Tommy Fury looks scared. I mean, I wouldn't fight either of them, right? So who am I talking shit? But at the same time, like why else aren't you guys fighting?
Yeah.
If everything's there, and KSI gave up the. He's like, fuck it, I won't do the rehydration clause. He can weigh whatever he wants to weigh. I don't care. Because he's like, I fought Logan, and Logan's a big dude. So Logan would have been bigger than Dillon regardless, and he still pulled out. We still haven't heard. Have you guys heard Dillon's side on that? We still haven't heard.
He's just tweeted twice. He's 2 tweets: fake news and the truth will shock you. Those were the 2 tweets he put out.
Yeah. And he also put up a poll asking if he's the most hated fighter on the planet. And
he did.
I
Okay,
voted
gotcha.
no. I voted no.
I think he might be at this point, but and that's if you label him a fighter now.
Right.
I don't know.
So, Usyk versus Fury. There's nothing on the paper. There's nothing signed. Does Robby Clark know what the fuck going on?
No, I have no idea in that world. I don't think that anybody beats Tyson right now, at least in the next year or so. And he's not showed any chinks. He's a unit. He's so big and imposing. Usyk is like, I just don't think he's going to be able to take it.
So
Give you an example.
Translation, you don't know what's going on, but you got Fury.
Yeah, I got Fury all day on that. Like size makes you. I was watching the Greg Hardy versus Hakeem Rockman Jr. fight before this, and it was so clear Hakeem Rockman Jr. had much better technique.
Yeah,
but you had his 300-pound footballer coming at you.
He couldn't hit. He couldn't touch him enough to like offset the technique in any way.
Hey, Greg Hardy won that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah, but
for Greg Hardy to beat a boxer.
I watched it too. Rockman was piecing him up in like the first round.
Oh, so he just gassed.
So much better. Yeah, he couldn't like wobble Hardy at all. Like he just couldn't.
Yeah,
the size was too big.
But I tell you, I watched the whole Rockman Jr. Jake Paul sparring match too, which is like over a year old or something like that now. And Jake Paul was piecing him up too. So I know he's a southpaw, but Hakeem looked good. That's what I was saying. But you get a guy with a 60, 80-pound advantage over you is athletic.
Right.
That's an uphill battle.
So Cejudo, Aljamain Sterling. Who's Aljamain Sterling defending his bout against? He reposted Inside Fighting last weekend. They're talking about Cejudo or O'Malley. Do you know what the fuck going on?
I don't know. Well, you know what? I'll say Cejudo for sure. And I'll tell you why. Like O'Malley, I don't like that fight for O'Malley right now. I think he's working on his wrestling for sure. But like Aljo's just got that back control, and I think it's going to be a boring fight. I'd rather O'Malley. I think O'Malley versus Cejudo. If Cejudo could beat Sterling, great. But O'Malley can fight Cheeto, or maybe Aljo moves up. Look, you can tell from the post-fight interview that I'm a huge O'Malley fan. I think he's awesome. He's exciting. He knocks people out, but it's not that he's scared of him, but he doesn't want to get backpacked the whole fight, and you can tell that it's like, that's kind of an annoying fight. And if Aljo has one more fight, because he's a big dude, and if Aljo decides to move up in weight and that's open, then it's O'Malley season. He's got a really good chance. But I think Aljo's just going to backpack him the whole fight.
Who's the best bantamweight in the world right now?
I mean, obviously Aljo. You got to say Aljo. Like
Aljo.
Nobody can establish that kind of control like Aljo. But what fight would you want to see again? O'Malley versus Peter Yan or Aljo versus Peter Yan?
Yeah. By the way, before we end this, it's according to Cheeto Vera, it's pronounced Cejudo, and I learned Cejudo. That's incorrect.
Cejudo?
But Aljamain Sterling reshared my interview.
Hey, get ready to edit in that clip from the first episode, Jesse, so people know what you're
Probably
doing.
didn't watch it.
This guy's got the worst comedic timing of all time. Bro,
I thought I offended somebody. First.
No, that's why we're
no.
laughing. This guy mentioned the Cejudo thing the last 3 episodes. Like, bro, we're not including that. Like,
Hey, I'm
he
happy.
thought that was gonna.
Triple C. I'm pumped to see Triple C back.
Jesse thought he was busting like a really quality, funny joke there. That's why me and Dante are laughing. That was bad, brother. I told you.
That's why I'm here, bro.
We're not comedians.
Shit.
All right, here we go. All right, let's end it clear, though.
You know it's
I'm not editing that out either. That's what's funny about it.
What'd you say, Robbie? All right, no, well, let's end it.
I say you can always count on Cap to rate your jokes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Manny Pacquiao, Nate Diaz.
Nate Diaz.
What round?
Boxing, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be like an exhibition or something. Yeah. I mean, Team Diaz came like I'll go Nate Diaz by decision.
Okay, Floyd Mayweather, Nate Diaz.
If it's a pro match and they do like 10, 12 rounds, like I could see Nate Diaz getting him out of there. Nate Diaz TKO round 9, round 10.
Really?
There's no disrespect to Floyd. He's just 45, 46. And, I think he could beat up that body and maybe get him, maybe be the guy to get him out if he goes back pro.
All right, well, thank you for joining us on the Fight SZN Podcast. Catch us next Monday. Episode released every Tuesday. Robby Clark, thank you for joining us. Our researcher, Dante Greco, you're the man. Our engineer, Christian. And, of course, Jesse Rowe. Catch us every Tuesday. And thank you so much. And
All right, guys.
enjoy the fights this weekend.
Thanks, Robbie.
Peace.